They said the housing boom was unstoppable, that prices only moved one way, that the American dream had simply evolved into bigger homes, longer mortgages, and endless appreciation. For years, it looked true. Then the cracks appeared. Builders stopped mid-frame, buyers disappeared overnight, listings multiplied, while offers vanished. The dream didn't die, it just sent the bill, and it's past due. Across the country, families who once bragged about home equity now whisper about insurance quotes and renewal notices that read like ransom demands. This isn't a crash you see on charts. It's slower, quieter, and far more dangerous because it's psychological. People are realizing they might not be able to afford the life they already have. Utah, the symbol of growth, balance, and clean living. Subdivisions used to appear overnight and waiting lists stretched for months. Now those lists are gone. The same builders who once rushed to pour foundations are pausing projects or canceling outright. The math simply doesn't work. Mortgage rates jumped, incomes stayed flat, and suddenly the monthly payment on an ordinary house eats almost half a paycheck. When 40% of your income disappears before groceries, gas, or daycare, everything else becomes a luxury. Add rising utility bills, higher taxes, and air quality concerns, and the pitch for mountain living feels less like freedom and more like financial suffocation. The silent exodus has already begun. Families who once moved here for stability now leave for affordability. Companies that chased low costs and loyal workers are trimming staff or shifting operations to cheaper states. When a market loses its speculative tailwind, the fall doesn't sound like a crash. It sounds like silence. Utah's silence is getting louder. Louisiana. This isn't a collapse. It's a flood. Not the kind you can sandbag, but the kind that seeps into everything. Insurance chaos, population decline, and stagnant wages have merged into a perfect storm. On paper, median prices look steady. In reality, homeowners are drowning. Insurance premiums that once cost a few $1,000s now rival a second mortgage. Some carriers left the state completely. Others stayed but doubled rates and cut coverage. Families who fought for a down payment now fight to keep coverage. Every renewal feels like roulette. Inventory surges, sales collapse. Price cuts spread like water stains across listing pages. Baton Rouge loses residents. New Orleans battles crime and decaying infrastructure. And the once vibrant energy sector faces automation and uncertainty. Add humidity, heat, and endless maintenance, and you get a property market no spreadsheet can love. Federal relief programs plug one hole only to open another. Coastal parishes literally lose ground as the line between land and sea shifts inland. A state once defined by resilience now faces the idea of economic evacuation. Not just falling values, but disappearing zip codes. Head west and the water disappears, but the heat arrives with a vengeance. Arizona sold itself as the land of sunshine, savings, and space. For years, it was true. Phoenix, Tucson, and Scottsdale turned into magnets for remote workers and retirees fleeing cold cities. The housing boom looked unstoppable. Then the thermometer joined the conversation. A string of 110-degree days isn't just weather. It's an economic event. Utility bills triple. Water costs surge. Air conditioning becomes a survival tool, not a luxury. Insurance providers eyeing wildfire and flood risks raise premiums or pull back coverage. Builders stop mid-project. The desert bargain morphs into a premium nobody asked for. Retirees who once saw Arizona as paradise are packing up. Remote workers who came for space and sun are heading north, chasing cooler climates and cheaper power. When heat becomes a budget line, migration reverses. The very weather that built Arizona's brand now eats it alive. The oasis didn't vanish, it just started charging for every drop. Colorado once felt like a cheat code. Mountain views, city wages, endless recreation. Denver and Boulder exploded with startups, coffee shops, and optimism. For a while it worked. Then the ground shifted. Mortgage costs climbed nearly 70% from the low-rate era. Luxury homes that once sold in a whisper now sit through snow and sun with price tags untouched. Investor appetite fades. Tourism faces uncertainty from wildfire seasons and unpredictable snowpack. Agriculture regions fight over water. Smaller towns that once looked affordable now confront homelessness, layoffs, and collapsing confidence. It's not only about purchase prices, it's everything: property taxes, maintenance, utilities, all rising together. Renters feel it too as vacancies climb for the wrong reasons. Not abundance, but distress. The postcard view remains gorgeous, but the lifestyle it represents is cracking. When high-altitude markets fall, they don't glide, they avalanche. And like any avalanche, it starts slow before the roar. Hawaii, paradise on the outside, pressure cooker on the inside. The dream sells itself. Ocean, mountains, freedom. But the reality is arithmetic. A price-to-income ratio deep into double digits, shipping costs on every nail and gallon of gas, and insurance premiums that redefine expensive. Short-term rentals that once promised passive profit now face empty calendars and tighter rules. Locals calculate the math and choose departure over debt. Flights leaving Honolulu are filled with residents who simply gave up. Empty condos owned by absentee investors fill the skyline, beautiful but hollow. Tourism sputters with each global wobble. When the broader economy coughs, Hawaii doesn't catch a cold, it gets pneumonia. In a place where resilience costs extra, the line between paradise and problem blurs fast. The ocean that attracts visitors also erodes the foundation beneath their feet. Every storm tests not just infrastructure, but endurance. California, the dream that wrote the rulebook. For generations, people chased its promise. Perfect weather, innovation, opportunity. Now the same story feels like a rerun with bad lighting. Median home prices remain untouchable. First-time buyers turn into lifelong renters. Insurance carriers pull out of fire zones. Cities juggle homelessness, crime, and infrastructure rot. Some neighborhoods still ignite bidding wars. Others sit in limbo. Taxes climb. Confidence slides. The Golden State still photographs like a dream, but living there costs like a nightmare. Reforms appear on the horizon, but relief doesn't pay next month's renewal. California still rewards the wealthy, but the middle class is running out of reasons to stay. The next tremor won't just shake foundations, it'll shake assumptions. Texas. For a decade, it was the success story. No state income tax, booming job market, endless land. Families fled the coasts and poured in by the hundreds of thousands. Home values soared and the state felt unstoppable. But the fine print arrived in the mail. Property taxes that climb every year, insurance premiums that shock, utilities that spike when the grid gasps under summer heat. Construction slows, manufacturing hesitates, migration cools. The formula that once looked bulletproof now depends on timing. When everything grows together, taxes, power, insurance, and cost of materials, the middle class gets squeezed first. The promise of Texas hasn't vanished, but it's no longer inevitable. Florida, the paradise that proved paradise, is fragile. After 2020, migration exploded, pushing prices skyward. Then the insurance crisis began. Premiums doubled, tripled, or disappeared entirely. Some carriers withdrew from coastal zones, others narrowed coverage to the point of uselessness. Families paying mortgages now pay a second rent just to protect their roofs. Property taxes climb, utilities surge, and the once unstoppable wave of newcomers begins to ebb. Inventory builds. Days on market stretch from hot to cold. Tourism endures, but infrastructure groans. The beaches stay stunning. The budgets don't. In a state where hurricanes rewrite maps overnight, confidence is as unstable as the shoreline. One more major storm could push thousands out, not by force of wind, but by force of math. Washington shows what happens when tech salaries freeze and stock options vanish. Nevada proves the danger of economies built on visitors. Utah demonstrates how fast affordability breaks when population outruns income. Louisiana exposes the limits of grit against nature. Arizona and Colorado reveal the weakness of lifestyle premiums when weather and cost collide. Hawaii shows the true cost of paradise. California shows where glamour ends and policy begins. Texas shows growth can't outrun expenses forever. Florida shows that insurance, once background noise, can become the main character of a housing market. These aren't isolated stories. They rhyme. So what happens next? If you're buying, you underwrite your worst month, not your best. You chase the payment you can survive, not the one a banker says you can afford. You assume insurance will rise again because it will. You factor in power, water, taxes, and the cost of maintenance that inflation quietly inflates. If you're selling, speed is strategy. You price to the last closed comp, not the highest wish. You offer credits, buy-downs, flexibility. Because buyers aren't desperate anymore, they're cautious. If you're holding, think like a CFO. Review every expense. Fix problems before they become claims. Document everything. The next 5 years won't reward speculation, they'll reward discipline. Investors who study absorption rates and local job data will win over those chasing headlines. This is more than economics, it's psychology. When buyers learn to expect discounts, sellers lose leverage. When confidence fades, even flat prices feel like declines. Neighborhoods don't implode overnight, they fade one for sale sign at a time. A single empty home becomes three. A few overgrown lawns turn into a street nobody wants to drive down. Momentum cuts both ways. For years, it pulled prices up effortlessly. Now it's pulling them down quietly, and while the charts lag, daily life doesn't. People feel the strain every time another bill arrives higher than the last. The deeper story isn't just about money, it's about identity. For decades, home ownership meant you'd made it. It was proof of adulthood, security, legacy. Now, for many, it's a liability that competes with peace of mind. The cost of keeping a home is starting to rival the desire to own one. That's the real shift. It's not just whether prices fall, it's whether ownership still feels worth the fight. Some communities will adapt. They'll build smarter, tighten codes and price risk honestly. Others will deny reality until the market forces the issue. The regions that survive won't necessarily be the richest or the cheapest. They'll be the ones that stay livable when the bills come due. In the next decade, resilience will be the new luxury. Climate-proof construction, reliable insurance, stable utilities, those will replace granite countertops as status symbols. Look around and you'll see the transition already happening. Towns once dismissed as flyover are thriving because they offer what big cities lost: balance sheets that make sense. Midwestern markets with modest prices and strong local economies are quietly attracting families tired of gambling on appreciation. People aren't chasing glamour anymore, they're chasing stability. The definition of value is shifting from speculation to sustainability. Neighborhoods rarely disappear in explosions, they dissolve. One moving truck, one foreclosure, one cracked driveway at a time. You don't see the breaking point until it's behind you. That's what makes this market dangerous. It doesn't announce itself with headlines, it creeps in through small decisions. A family delays maintenance, a landlord skips insurance, a developer pauses a project. Multiply that by thousands, and suddenly the soft landing feels more like quicksand. But there's opportunity hidden inside the chaos. Markets that deflate too fast often overshoot. Buyers who keep cash and patience will find bargains in the wreckage. Sellers who move fast can escape before the floor drops. And policymakers who accept that climate risk and affordability are financial realities, not political talking points, can rebuild something sustainable. The next boom won't be about square footage. It'll be about function, efficiency, and cost control. The lesson is simple. The housing market isn't collapsing, it's evolving. It's forcing everyone, buyers, sellers, investors, to face the real cost of what we call home. When speculation fades, reality enters the room. That's uncomfortable, but it's necessary. You can't build a stable market on hope alone. The last few years taught us that growth without grounding becomes debt. Cheap credit created illusions of wealth. Expensive credit is exposing the truth. So where does that leave us? With a choice. Keep pretending the old playbook still works, or start adapting to a market that rewards clarity. The smart players aren't chasing hype. They're studying fundamentals: income growth, climate exposure, insurance risk, and local resilience. The flashy numbers don't matter anymore. The survival metrics do. If you're buying, buy the payment, not the price. If you're selling, move before momentum moves you. If you're holding, protect your asset like it's a business, because it is. And if you're dreaming of that perfect home, remember, home isn't supposed to be a bet. It's supposed to be a base. The housing dream isn't dead, it's just relocating. To places where numbers make sense, to communities that value maintenance over mania, to families who plan for storms instead of praying they pass. The winners of the next decade won't be the ones who bought at the top or timed the bottom. They'll be the ones who built resilience into their budgets and honesty into their expectations. Home isn't a trophy anymore. It's a test. The test of whether your lifestyle can survive your bills. The test of whether a community can endure without endless growth. And the test of whether we can finally learn that stability isn't built on hype, it's built on humility. So when you hear the phrase housing slowdown, understand what it really means. It's not just fewer sales or smaller profits. It's a national reckoning with what we've built, what we've ignored, and what it actually costs to live the dream. Because in the end, every market sends a message, and this one's clear. The bill for the boom is here. The question is who's ready to pay it and who's ready to move on.